Well, we wrapped up a very exciting weekend of boxing, more exciting than even I expected. I didn't expect to see what we saw. In a lot of cases, I got my predictions quite wrong, and I want to go through the list. But I do want to kind of call attention to a few signature things where I did get it right. First up, let's cover the one that I think was worth the price of admission. All the fights were a level of exciting, but I think this one stood out. Prior to the fight, I said that the Tszyu versus Terrell Gausha fight, I felt that was going to be the one, the standout. That was going to be the one that was going to catch eyes. And I felt like there was a chance, because this was Tszyu's coming out moment in the United States, I felt there was a chance that it could go very similar to Naseem Hamed versus Kevin Kelley. And if you didn't, and most people that are in the UK remember that fight, but if you didn't watch Naseem Hamed, Kevin Kelley, that was Naseem Hamed's coming out in the United States against, at the time, a very solid but somewhat declining Kevin Kelley. In that fight, Naseem Hamed, up to that point, let's back up a little bit. Up to the point, Naseem Hamed had been presented as an unstoppable beast, let's be honest. And he was dominant, but it was against lesser opposition, clearly lesser opposition. He gets in there against Kevin Kelley, and the notable moment about this is his entrance, Hamed's entrance. It was so damn long. It was pissing everybody off. You could see Kevin Kelley is yelling at somebody saying, come on, let's get this going. It was so long. The commentators, I think it was Larry Merchant at the time, they're all just really upset because it's so long. And later, Hamed would cut an interview saying, I didn't want it that long. That wasn't part of the plan, but they didn't call the cue. So he's doing the dancing behind the curtain or whatever it is, and then he comes out and he's going down the ramp, and there's all these streamers and confetti. That was the signature in my mind. And then, of course, he does his signature flip over the ropes, and he runs up to Kevin's face for a second and then backs off. And all this pomp and circumstance is just pissing Kevin off. You could see it in his eyes. He's really upset. So then the fight begins. And then early on, Kevin Kelley drops Hamed. And there was I'm pretty sure George Foreman was on commentary. And I love George Foreman on commentary, and I wish he didn't get the raw deal. But there was a moment in commentary, George Foreman is saying, I don't know if it was George Foreman or it was Manny Stewart. It was one of the two. But they were saying about how Hamed keeps leaning his head back, because that's what he would do. Basically, he would go in for a combo, and then as he's going on the reverse, he would lean his head back, but leave himself wide open. And he did this pattern for a while. Eventually, Kevin's able to catch him doing this. And so Hamed gets dropped. It's the first time, I'm pretty sure, in his career Hamed had ever been dropped. Hamed gets up and he's fine. Then there's a sequence a little bit later where Hamed gets dropped. And it's funny because he gets hit, he goes down, his gloves touch, he comes back up, he gets hit again, he does this Gumby thing and then goes down, gloves touch again. So he got like 2 drops. Hilarious. He's wobbled and bouncing like Bambi all over at the end of the round. So Hamed was getting wrecked, and people were like, okay, he might be getting exposed. Hamed pulls something out of something, because he's then able to come back and catch Kelley with some shots that caused Kelley to start making mistakes. Kevin started making critical mistakes, because early he was a brilliant patient watching for Hamed to make the errors that he made and then caught him. But then Hamed shifted and was able to trick Kevin into making the mistakes, and then eventually catches Kevin, drops him, and then gets a stoppage. It was one of the most exciting fights of the time, was Hamed versus Kelley. And I predicted this could go at least somewhat similar to it, because A, it's Tszyu's coming out moment. B, you have the same dynamic in terms of their countries that they're fighting in or campaigning in. In this fight, we saw Terrell Gausha, and I sent on social media a video. He had a video from 2017. I forget the opponent, but he hit the guy with like a 4-piece combo. It was a beautiful combo, brilliant, beautiful, like nothing I'd ever seen from anybody outside of like Amir Khan. And I predicted that something similar could happen if you took Gausha lightly. And Tszyu didn't take Gausha lightly. Tszyu seemed like he was too sure of himself, I guess, the best way to describe it. Because he gets caught and then he gets dropped. And I think this was like round 1. It was really early against Gausha, and he gets up, he's fine, he's bouncing, he's okay. There's nothing really wrong with him. I think it just kind of shocked him or stunned him. And he fought tentative after this. He was good stylistically, but he fought tentative. He didn't have the same aggression that we would have seen against Like what we saw against Jeff Horn, for example. He didn't have anywhere near the level of aggression to get the guy out of there that I thought he should have had in order to make a real good statement. And him getting dropped didn't surprise me and wouldn't have surprised anybody in the boxing business or any fans. I think the problem is that when you have somebody coming overseas making their debut, if you're going to get dropped, at least go and get the stoppage. Like, make that statement to say it was a, and he said after the fight it was a flash. It wasn't a flash. He got caught flush. So I don't think it wasn't a terrible performance at all. He did what he needed to do, and it was a decent coming out. But going to the bell against Terrell Gausha, if you're in the business or you watch it, you're not surprised that it went to the decision. But given the hype and given the pattern that Tszyu had coming in, you're kind of surprised that he went to the decision. You would have thought that if he really was this beater, he would have gotten Gausha out of there or gotten a stoppage on Gausha, and he couldn't do it. That's the story, I think, of the fight that I took away. Kudos to Tszyu, though, for his U.S. debut being successful, getting the decision against a very game Terrell Gausha. I wasn't surprised by the ending or the outcome, but I was kind of surprised that he got dropped, only because, again, look at his pattern prior to this fight. And this is a guy that was calling out a lot of the top names and saying that he was something, and maybe he still is, but it's clear he still got some growing to do, and the guys that he fought were just enough on the decline that he was just that much better than them. I still give him respect. I give Gausha respect. It was a good fight for what it was. Check it out if you get a chance, just to see stylistic brilliance of both guys. Both guys did a very good job. I think you're going to be a little bit less excited about Gausha because he's one of those precision type fighters. He reminds me a lot of what you get if Mr. Gary Russell Jr. were fighting at the upper weight classes. That's what he reminds me a lot of. So don't expect barn burner necessarily, but I think it's a good fight from a boxing purist perspective. Take a look at that one. Tszyu versus Terrell Gausha. Tszyu gets the victory out decision after getting off the floor.